Welcome to this evening's public service meeting. I was hoping that might make my screen work, but it didn't. Please press record. Town clerk, please, have you pressed record?
I have indeed, yes.
Oh, good, lovely. Okay. So, agenda item 1, we have public participation. We have 3 members of public registered. The public are welcome to ask a question of the committee on matters that are within the committee's remit. The question mustn't be a statement, nor in several parts, and it would be appreciated if it could be kept short to maximise time for other questions. And there is no right of reply. So, do I have any speakers, Town Clerk?
Yes, Hilary Salter would like to speak.
All right, thank you.
Am I speaking now?
Please.
Yes, please.
Oh, hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about being neighbourly. It's good to be amongst people who understand and agree the same values as our small group. I noticed we were mentioned in your minutes, so it's just to give you a bit of information, as I say, about our group. Being Neighbourly is a local organisation for local people, supporting our neighbours to make life feel a little bit easier, protecting against loneliness. We've emerged from the vision of Fiona Hayward, who's a social prescriber. She's liaised with other organisations and volunteers within the neighbour to support our neighbours, ensuring there's no duplication, but there's mutual support system amongst the network. We've evolved into an unincorporated association under the dynamism and energy of Sasha Brown from Mid Sussex Volunteers Group. She's ensured we've kept on track with some of the more formal sides of our group. Since the inception at the end of March, and I need to read this, our 24 volunteers have supported 124 residents in the area with 841 activities. We accept self-referrals from neighbours and referrals from other agencies, which also has included the East Grinstead Emergency Group. So what are our next steps? Well, first next step is the neighbours want to get out and about in the community. We had hoped to arrange an afternoon tea event at Chequermead, but I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen anymore. But our neighbours are beginning to suffer some high anxiety and are really itching to get out and about. They just want to get out of their own house and do a bit of people watching of somebody else in another place. Some of them also want to go to the supermarket themselves, working out how to use their card system. Secondly, we want to develop our volunteer base. Obviously, working with the East Grinstead Action Group, we want to, talk about how we develop that base with you. We have spoken to the East Grinstead and District Mental Health Association, who have monthly cups of teas and chats at Chequermead, and we thought that would be a good strategy for our neighbours to join one of those groups that's an already established group. We've also spoken to Care about transport arrangements, and I understand their volunteers are only doing long distance treks to Guildford and Haywards Heath. So there is a local need for volunteers to be driving. So again, this could be another mutually supportive link we could develop. We're also looking at various funding opportunities because we need to look at insurance for the group and DBS for new people joining our group. So that's about it. So finally, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. It's good to know that we've got your support. If anybody's got any questions for me, please contact, Julie has my email address, so please contact me. Any questions you have, I'd love to answer them. There's a lot to talk about. So thank you very much again for this opportunity. Bye.
Thank you very much, Hilary. That's very
welcome.
interesting.
Thank you.
Good. Do we have any more public questions? No? Then I shall move on. At this point, I would like to call the register. So if I announce the name, could you say present? Is that all right, Town Clerk? Councillor Amos.
Present.
Mrs. Belsey.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Bennett.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Farron.
Present.
And I'm here, I can confirm. Councillor Odie.
Present.
Councillor Scott.
Present.
Councillor Whitaker.
Present.
Councillor Woodgate.
Present.
Town Mayor.
Present.
And no deputy, I understand. Correct?
He's here.
He is here now.
Oh, he is here. Hello, John. Sorry. So, present? Righty-ho.
Down there, you need to unmute yourself if you're going to speak.
So sorry. My apologies for my tardiness, Madam Chairman, but I was a little late due to computer problems.
That's understandable. I've had them as well. Right. So, as we have no absences, we do not have to propose and second, do we? Town clerk.
We've got everybody here, so there are no apologies to accept.
Right, lovely. We can move on then. So, we'll receive item 3 to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of June, 2020. This is for accuracy, purpose, and I would like to ask for a second.
Chairman, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Any comment from anybody, or are we all happy with them? Okay, then I'm going to ask for a show of hands to approve. Thank you. So, right, we're going to move on to agenda item 4, Chairman's update. Right. Let's start with the pop-up cycle lane on London Road. This was reported previously. It is a national initiative, partly COVID inspired, to get more people out and about on their bikes. East Grinstead was chosen for a small section on London Road. It has been implemented this week and chaos has ensued. These are the name for the temporary bollards, are to protect the cycle lane, but have pushed the traffic out to the point that at Imberhorn Lane Junction, anyone in the filter lane means no one can go straight on due to the cycle lane, as there just isn't enough room for everyone. Some of the ones have been put in wrongly, and we are told that they're being corrected. West Sussex Cabinet have backed up the pop-up lanes, and the instruction to the staff is to make it happen. Local county councillors have been briefed, but have also raised their concerns. Where it stands at the moment, it is that the cycle lane will not be removed. It will be tweaked and modified until it works. It will be monitored and the use of it by cyclists, and only if it is not used will it be removed. It is still in the build phase. Once it works, it will be monitored, and if it's not used, it will be removed. If it is used, it will stay. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Chairman, we
Yes,
have
please.
Councillor Mrs. Russell here, and I think she's keen to say a few words, if that's possible.
Of course it is. Welcome, Councillor Russell. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I just need to slightly reset the story there. The pop cycle lane is actually as a result of the government initiative, the government idea to install alternative options for people to travel over short journeys, because they want to alleviate pressure on buses and trains, because there's a need to socially distance. So what they said was that local authorities had to go out to the community and ask for suggestions for proposals of where to put in some areas for cyclists to cycle, or for people to cycle on. And there were 250 schemes submitted to West Sussex County Council, and they had a week to go through all of those schemes, and they had to assess them against some set criteria from the DFT, the Department for Transport. East Grinstead and the surrounding areas and Asheswood had 18 schemes submitted, and every single one of them, bar one, was submitted by the Cycle Forum. So none of them are from the Highways Department, they're all from the community. So the Highways Department went through them all and lined them up against measured criteria, and there were seven schemes in the whole of the county that met the DFT criteria for tranche 1 funding. And the A22 southbound carriageway, which already in part has some cycleway, was selected. So it's not a case of the Cabinet saying, yes, let's do it. We were told to submit these schemes, and the DfT then looked at those schemes and said, yes, we will accept that these meet the criteria, now go and do them. Because it's all about being able to maintain as much social distance as possible during this pandemic situation that we're in. There wasn't a case of it being a Cabinet decision. It had to be implemented. We are Highways are merely the implementers of this. So the only thing that Highways have had to do is instruct a contractor to implement the cycle lane. So the cycle lane is not quite implemented. It's going in. I drove up yesterday through it and was watching the contractor Hobart's putting in cones, and you're quite right, there was an issue around the Imphorn Lane junction, and at the moment the cones have been removed from that. And what's going to happen is they're going to put the cycle lane in, they'll monitor it and they'll modify it where it's not working. It is temporary, and it's one of the schemes that has been potentially earmarked for becoming permanent, but it won't become permanent if it doesn't work for everybody. So once it's finally been put in, and it hasn't been finished, there's quite a bit of work they have to do. You're quite right, local councillors, including myself, raised concerns, particularly about the narrowness, and I was quite concerned about an area where there's a pedestrian refuge, which they are removing to accommodate the cycle lane, so that there were some concerns. But what will happen now is once it's in, it will be audited by an independent safety auditor, and it will also have a counter installed, so it will actually be able to evidence the amount of times cyclists use it. And if it is underused, it will be removed. There is no doubt about that. And another thing is there is a website, there is a web link to our webpage where residents can register their comments, and I'm quite happy to send that on to the clerk afterwards. And also county will also be issuing a survey, a have your say, once it's been implemented, so they can really get a good idea of the overall view in East Grinstead of the cycle lane. But I just can't stress enough that this is not as a result of something the County Council have decided to just put in. They are merely doing what the government has told them to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. That's great. Thank you. And I think it would be, yes.
I'm so sorry. We've got a couple of indicators, probably questions on this issue. The first I have is Councillor Odie has asked to speak.
Righty-ho. Yes, Councillor Odie, please speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. Quickly, because I know the time's going to run on, but Councillor Russell, thank you so much for all that you did on the work for that, and also Councillor Bennett for the West Sussex County Council push for the cycle lane. I want to stress to everybody, though, don't forget that cycle lane, 80% of that cycle lane was already there. Yeah. The only difference is that they're called delineators, which are the sort of plastic markers, if you like, which are separating the cycle lane from the main road. So it's to encourage people to cycle on that route a bit more, because they'll be safer. I'm really hopeful that people are going to use that cycle lane a bit more. It does need tweaking, perhaps a little bit, and actually common sense prevailed yesterday because of the Imphorn Lane junction, and of course, and that's absolutely fine. But I just wanted to just make sure that everyone's aware that it's not something new that's going in. It's existing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Odie.
Chairman, sorry, we have two more questions. First of all, Councillor Amos has messaged me privately because he's unable to find raised hand button, but he would like to ask a question, please.
Righty-ho, Councillor Amos.
There's a lot of talk as to whether or not it will be underused, and it has to meet a certain threshold to be used. What is that threshold in terms of the capacity utilisation of the road? Because I suspect the cycle lane is never going to meet the capacity utilisation that cars make of the corresponding area by the side of it.
I should imagine that would be something that you could find out from West Sussex or via the link that Jackie is going to provide. Okay, who else is there?
And Chairman, the town leader, Councillor Dick Sweatman, would like to speak, please.
Yes, Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. I did put my hand down, but I will say, I just wondered what survey was done on the likely use of the cycleway, because playing devil's advocate, the amount of times I've used that road down the A22, I can't remember even seeing a cyclist use it. So I just wondered whether this is an appropriate use of public money. Thank you.
Shall I come back on that, Chair?
Yes, of course you can. Yes.
It wasn't a case of doing surveys. I think you have to realise that, Councillor Sweatman, that we are in a pandemic situation, and the Government Minister Grant Shapps announced 250 million government money, so it hasn't come out of local taxpayers' money. I think that's very important to underline. This has come from the Department of Transport, and basically said that we need to set up an infrastructure, temporary infrastructure in and around towns across the country to enable people to have an alternative option other than using a bus or a train on a short journey. So the County Council had 7 days to submit schemes across the county, and in that 7 days they had 250 schemes, 18 of which were in East Grinstead. There was no time to do a survey. County councillors had 3 days to give their views, and myself and Councillor Bennett both gave our views and aired our concerns. But as Councillor Odey has pointed out, 80% of that cycleway is already along that stretch, so it is an extension. I'm not sure that it will be successful, but at the end of the day, you know, it's in, or it will be in, and it will be independently audited by an independent safety advisor. And we can really all we can do, as we are required to do, is carry out the government's wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I am going to... Is there anyone else?
I'm so sorry, Chairman. Yes, there is. Councillor Whitaker would like to ask a question.
Right then, Councillor Whitaker, and we're going to make this one the last one, if we may, because I am...
Very briefly, as we've got Paul here from Sussex Police, I just wonder if he has a view, and the police have a view, because it's my understanding that I mean, this scheme is rolled out obviously in Worthing and other towns, and were the police consulted, and you know, what's their view, either personal or professional, Paul?
Yes, Councillor Whitaker. Personally, I think it's rather difficult. It's in place, and that's what we expected, and whatever the government says is going to happen, as far as we're concerned, and I talk the royal we, but as far as the police service are concerned, we'll go with it. I think it's difficult. Personally, I think it's a little bit difficult if you are, you got your blue lights running and you're trying to get up that London road. It's very difficult for us because there's such bad traffic congestion there now. I don't know what's happened in Worthing or anywhere else like that. All my efforts are really concentrated on East Grinstead. I've seen what you've done in London Road. I understand the purpose 100%. It is just a little bit difficult with the traffic congestion, but things we'll just have to get through that and get over it. So yes, I can't really tell you anything else about that.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Right. If there are no more questions, I'm going to move on to the next part of my chairman's update, which is the Stone Quarry open space. So the proposed green space at Spring Copse is moving forward with Clarion, Mid Sussex District Council and the East Grinstead Town Council involvement. This was to be a MUGA, but is moving on now with some exciting plans. There will be a public consultation soon, but this is really the proposals on the back of all the previous consultations. It is moving ahead, and that is good news. The flu vaccines. Now, the doctors' surgeons have been in discussion with the town council as to using community facilities in the town as pop-up flu vaccine centres. Patients will be invited to attend pop-ups at the Meridian Hall and the Jubilee Centre. They will be by the invitation only and will mostly be at weekends. They are starting early October and running through November, which I think is a very positive move on their behalf. So I'm going to move on now to the Stone Quarry Post Office. Mid Sussex District Council have now ended the lease with the formal occupant, and ward members are encouraging the district to ensure that this can return to being a local post office. Liz may have a little more to add, but before she does, I'd like to ask the committee to note the progress and send our support to urge the District Council to ensure that this remains a community facility for Stone Quarry. Is there anything you would like to say, Councillor Mrs. Bennett?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just an update, sort of further update from me on both those points. Yes, really exciting going back to what we now call the community space down at the woods in Stone Quarry. And I had the opportunity to look at some initial plans earlier on this week, and it does look very exciting, but we need to go out to consultation to the residents to just get their agreement on that. But it's all looking very exciting. As for the post office, it's really important that we do support that retained as a post office, but obviously that needs to be run as a business. So I know there's a couple of people interested, but really they need to go to the post office and have discussions with them so that that can be supported. But I'm hoping to have a meeting in the next couple of weeks with Mid Sussex to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's the end of my updates. So I'm going to move on to item 5 to receive members' declarations of interest, if anyone has any. And if anyone has a pecuniary interest, they will be returned to the waiting room for the item and they cannot hear or speak or see the deliberations. Okay, do we have any?
Yeah.
Lovely. Right then.
Yeah, I got personal interest, please.
Oh, right.
The last item on the agenda, street pastor, is one of my beneficiaries in my mayor area. So thank you.
Thank you, Town Mayor. So now here we are, agenda item 6, and I would like to hand over to Sergeant Paul Voigt, who is in attendance for the first time, so welcome. And I would like to say how fabulous you all are on Twitter before you start, and keep up the good work. So over to you.
Oh, that's an awesome thing to say. Thank you very much. My boss, Darren Taylor, can't make it tonight because he's the duty inspector. So he does say sorry for not being here, being involved. And he's asked me to stand in for him. It's very awkward for me doing this because I haven't met you folks before, and I'm one of those types of people that likes to talk to people in person. But I'll do my best. If you can't get through my South African accent or anything like that, please tell me. Any questions or anything like that as well, please just interrupt if need be. My understanding really is that I'm sitting here to talk to you about the type of work we've been doing and where we're getting with our endeavours in East Grinstead. I would like to say that we do feel very passionate about our work in your town. I'm in Havers Heath at the moment where I live, but that doesn't distract from the mission that we have, and that is to do the best we can in your town. So myself, prevention teams are not big, so I have 2 dedicated PCSOs, Chris and Kelly, and myself as the 3 main people that are working in East Grinstead and the face of Sussex Police there, essentially. Somewhere where people can speak to, somewhere where people can get information about what the police are doing. Of course, we have some PCs that are available, and we balance our resources. So for instance sake, on this Saturday night, we have extra teams on because of antisocial behaviour in Crawley and throughout Mid Sussex. Because I'm running that, I can divert some of the troops into East Grinstead, get outside onto the high street, the bridge bowl, the pubs along there, just to have more police presence. And we've been concentrating on that. Our mission as such has been working on the places where there's antisocial behavior. And if I look down, please excuse me, I do have some notes. But we know about East Court, we know about Mount Noddy and any other places that have been attracting antisocial behavior. And it was a mission to get into, because using East Court as an example, you have people coming from Kent and from East Grinstead, meeting their young people, they're bringing all their rubbish, they are drinking, they're smoking cannabis, doing all those sort of things. So we put in measures into that area to sort it out first. I brought extra people from other areas of Mid Sussex so that we could come in, get out of the van and tackle it in strength, because just the three of us wouldn't be able to make much difference. But we've managed the resources as best we can, and balance them as well, because we have to go to other places. And we've been there, East Court. I think we have done a good job there. It seems to have quietened right down there. Whereas before, if you went down a Friday night, the lower car park would be chock-a-block with people. There would be rubbish all over the place. We seem to have got through that stage. Some of them moved off to Mount Noddy, and some of them moved to the King's Park. I think it's the King's Park. And both places I've put resources in. Mount Noddy, we have the problem with the bowling green there and the wonderful people that use that facility. The awkward thing for us there has been that where the bowling green is, that area is a wonderful hiding place for teenagers to go and sit. The hot weather, they were sitting there in the afternoon into the evening. But again, I think through a dispersal order there, like we did in East Court, I think it's helped a lot. It's moved on. Where next they're going to move to, I'm not 100% sure. We rely on information from the public, and when we get that information, we use it to direct where we're going to put our patrols and what we're going to do. So the antisocial behavior side of things has been the one area I've been concentrating on. The other area has been what's been coming up on social media. And social media is wonderful in as much as it gives me a good grasp of what's affecting the people in your beautiful town. So we had the individual that was walking past and punching people. I'm sure you've all heard about that. He does have mental health issues. So the first thing we did was we went and arrested him. As soon as we knew it was, we worked out exactly who we thought it was. We went and arrested him. We couldn't interview him at the time, or not us. It went through to investigation, CID in Crawley. They couldn't interview him because of his communication problems. So that he had to get released on bail. Actually released not on bail. There's no bail conditions on him because they couldn't enforce anything. So essentially he was released under investigation. And now suddenly we've had a few more reports popping up on social media that people have been victims of this again on the high street. No one has officially come forward yet with that. But what I've done is I sent two very good officers of mine to go and see him and his mum today. Essentially, we told him that we are hearing through the grapevine on social media that there's issues with him. So I'm still waiting for my update, which I'll get tomorrow. But my understanding is that hopefully, in the meantime, that will help. And we are then having professional meetings with mental health workers, his GP, social services, etc. So it's a combined effort to work on that individual. Hopefully that will do the trick. It's been monitored really closely, and I take it personally with people doing things like this on your high street. Jack Heslip, another big problem. I can say his name because he's been charged. He's got his community behavior order against him, which came into place 2 days ago. I arrested him on Friday for burglary, which is still being investigated. And then I arrested him yesterday morning for a theft from a vehicle, which is being investigated. So it's kind of, as soon as I hear about something, I direct the troops to it, and we try to deal with it as soon as possible. And then it's up to either the courts or the investigative processes as how it's going to be dealt with. But I make a massive effort, and so does especially the team, to get out there and get them in as soon as possible. So we've had good messages of thanks from the public in East Grinstead about Chris and Kelly, the two PCSOs. I went to a pub watch meeting last week with them. Not all the pubs were there, but some of the important ones were. We're getting the message out that we are there to do a job. We are there to integrate with the community, and we want information, and we will act on the information. And that's where we really are at the moment. There has been motorbike thefts. There's been a spike of motorbike thefts and vehicle thefts, which are they are rather difficult to deal with at the moment, because the criminals are not stupid. They know that 3 o'clock in the morning, the likelihood of one of my colleagues being on patrol there every night at that sort of time is not as much as one would like it. So these bikes are getting stolen, and usually they're just getting taken not very far from the theft site and getting destroyed or dumped. So that's something that I'm desperately trying to look on. We're looking at what intelligence information we can get to help with that. It may be locals, but then some of these bikes are ending up in Edenbridge. So it may be people from Kent coming across that have connections to East Grinstead, and unfortunately taking the pickings that are available. So it's exceptionally frustrating, but we are working on it all the time. Is there anything else I can tell you?
Well, if you like, we could open it up if anybody has any questions they would like.
Chairman, Chairman, I have the town clerk who would like to say a few words next.
Right.
And do you mind if I give a quick announcement?
Yeah.
Not everybody seems to have the raised hand facility on their device. So if you don't, if you could literally raise your hand, and I will try and find you. If I happen to miss you, please do send me a message on chat, but I'll do my best to find everybody. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry.
Thank you. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair. It was just a quick one, really, before, I'm sure the committee will have lots of questions they want to ask or comments they're going to say to you. I really wanted to pick up again about this this gentleman who clearly does have mental health issues with regards to punching people in the town, because I was aware that I'd picked up again. But I have had a report from somebody who said that they had tried to report this through to the police, even quoted the previous crime number, and were told that they didn't have any record of anything to do with it. So I'm surprised you say nobody's reported it, because the person that I've been liaising with on social media says that they did try to report it. So I don't know if there's a problem somewhere. I mean, they might have had the wrong crime number. I'm not saying that it was perfect, but I believe they did try to report. So I'll go back to them and make sure that they come back through to you again, because it does seem to have started up again. And we do need to nip this in the bud now, because sooner or later someone's going to hit him back, and it's going to be quite nasty. So we do need to get that dealt with. Another quick question is, you mentioned about vehicle crime. Catalytic converters. I've heard of a few people who are saying that the cat converter's been pinched off the cars. Is that something we're seeing? Thank you.
Well, okay. In response to your first question, I saw what the comments you're talking about on social media, and that led me to make an extra check, if I might, to see if it had been called in. They might have the wrong number, and I'm hoping that's it. Because even if they weren't linking it, if you phoned the police and you were reporting an incident like that, they would create an incident report and it would go somewhere. They wouldn't just say, you know, no, don't know what you're talking about. we're not going to create a crime report for that. So there seems to be perhaps some sort of a confusion with that person while they're trying to report this crime. But I can say that as far as I could see on our systems, nothing had come through today. I will check it again tomorrow morning because naturally we are waiting for that crime report to come in, get a statement from the person and go hell for leather. I'm a firm believer in the golden hours, such as the police say. You've got a short period of time and you act as quickly as possible. So we will not procrastinate. We get the statement, we do it, and we get him in. It's not an easy individual to manage. He does have communication issues. He does have mental health problems. It's not a normal sort of an incident where you could go and get someone, arrest them and take them to the custody and maybe either get them remanded or something like that. There's a lot of extra work that has to go into this individual with partnership help. The police cannot do it by themselves. It's not going to work like that. But what I'll do is, Julie, I will make sure that it's double checked in the morning. I'm back on early tomorrow morning. If you would like to, if they've got details, if you would like to email me, that's fine as well, and we can get someone to contact them, and we can do it that way.
I'll push it again from my end because I've got a direct contact back to the individual, so I will do that. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Second one, catalytic converters is a fascinating subject, and funnily enough, there were 3 stolen from the hospital 3 months ago, from parked cars at the hospital. It's organized crime linked to an organized travellers group in London. London has been completely swamped by them. You can make probably 200 to nearly 500 pounds per catalytic converter because of the precious metals contained within them. So I've been working with Kent, Surrey, Thames Valley and the Met in relation to those thefts. We've had no more since then in East Grinstead. So we had the 3 at the hospital. There was CCTV that showed no faces. The vehicles were found on CCTV committing the exact same crimes in Surrey. What these individuals do is they'll drive down from London. They know exactly where the ANPR cameras are. When they get to a camera, they'll go through the camera, they'll stop, they'll take a stolen number plate out the boot, put it on, and then go do the crime. And then the whole reverse process until they get home, they continuously change plates. And we know that because when we have arrested them, the boots are filled with plates. There were some arrests in Worthing, but essentially there's been no more in East Grinstead, and I'm monitoring that very closely. It's called Operation Exhaust, which I set up. My fear was that East Grinstead, because we had those 3 at the hospital, was going to get bombarded by them. But fortunately, after that, it was Haywards Heath, then Burgess Hill, then Crawley. And that is essentially where it's been happening. But I do have a grip on it, Julie. I'm so glad you asked that question because that's one thing I certainly can answer about.
Do we have anyone else?
Chairman, I haven't had any indication. If anybody would like to ask a question, I have Councillor Amos, Chairman.
Very good. Councillor Amos.
Thank you. That all sounds fantastic, and I really do appreciate the fact that you're working on those things. Thank you very much. But I would like to raise an issue that came to me with the previous inspector that spoke to us last time. I asked him for a target on crime reduction over 2 years. And funnily enough, he said, yes, I can give you a target. He said, and I quote, I do like proving what we're doing works, and I'm more than happy to set targets and report back to you. And not even 2 years, in the next 12 months, I'm happy to show we're making a success or not. Do you want me to be quieter? Yeah. And I asked that question because obviously you've got new PCSOs, and so I want to see whether or not they make a difference. So I've asked for a target. I followed him up with an email, and he hasn't given me a target. In fact, he promised that he would do his best, which quite frankly, I don't think is really a target, because we can't hold you to account. Because however much you may say you are doing your best, we can't tell whether or not that's the case objectively, because there's no way to measure. So could I ask you for a target, or could I ask for the inspector to apologise to this committee for somewhat misleading the committee?
Councillor Amos, sorry, you were a little bit broken in your speech, but I think I got everything you said. May I just ask, was it the previous inspector that said that to you? Or was it Inspector Taylor?
Can I just interrupt here? Actually, I'm awfully sorry, Sergeant Voigt. I have a statement from Inspector Taylor, which says, following the last meeting, Councillor Amos had asked for a target to measure reduced crime. However, Inspector Taylor has since advised he cannot give a target, but will work to reduce crime figures over the next year. So I think there we have our answer, and I think we can move on.
No, Mr. Chairman, could I object to that, please?
No, because I made a statement, Councillor Amos, and I do like to remind you there is no right of reply. So if we could move on to the next question, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Chairman, I have Councillor Dick Sweatman, the leader of the Town Council, to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. What I was going to say was, I think you've just actually said it. I can't see how the police can actually have targets. They don't know what the crime is. They would do their best as they always do. I don't think you can have specific figures on a target. So I think Councillor Amos is being a bit disingenuous there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. Are there any more questions for Sergeant Voigt?
Sorry, Chairman, I think I've just seen a raised hand. Yes, Councillor de Bell.
Thank you, Councillor de Bell. Carry on.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. Thank you for coming along tonight, Sergeant Voigt. It's, I think that we're all pleased with the way that we have people on the streets over the last 9 months or so. Things have changed, and it is a positive move forward. Can I ask you a question though, in terms of something that one of the people from town asked me, or actually they didn't actually ask me, but let me just clarify. Are you seeing changes to normal practices because of COVID? And what I'm talking about is, there's an old gentleman that lives in East Grinstead. It's actually part of East Grinstead, which is Felbridge. And it is the East Grinstead part of Felbridge. This old gentleman was assaulted in word only on his doorstep by somebody that lives close by. And at first he was told that there was nothing could be done about it by a police officer, I understand. He then asked to speak to his supervising officer, and the supervising officer apparently told him that yes, he had got a right, you know, because he had been assaulted on his doorstep, even though it was only words, and that under normal circumstances the person who perpetrated this would have been spoken to. However, because of COVID, the police are not allowed to approach people on this sort of issue. Now, is that correct? Are there certain practices which have been sort of held back because of COVID? Thank you.
John, that's an interesting question, but listening to what you were saying, and there was a little bit of breakage in the comms as such, but that doesn't sound right to me. There's no changes to how we're going to go and speak to anybody that there's an allegation against. If there's any issues, we'll put on a mask, we'll keep the social distancing, but there would be nothing preventing us speaking to those individuals whatsoever.
That's very good to hear. Thank you very much, Sergeant Boyd. I
Okay,
shall
my pleasure.
tell our people, our person, this old boy, he's actually in his 80s, that he should speak again to the supervising officer, and let's get something done about it. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Do we have anyone
Chairman,
else? Councillor
yeah,
Whittaker?
Chairman, I have Councillor Woodgate would like to ask a question.
Righty-ho. Carry on, Councillor Woodgate.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Paul. It was a question about the cars and bikes being stolen and not going very far. Is that kids joyriding and then burning them, or could it be things like insurance fraud? You know, is that something that could be looked into maybe as well? I don't know. It's just, it seems a bit funny that they get stolen and then dumped if no money's being made out of it. What's the point?
Jason, yes, there's always that possibility. From my professional experience, looking at the different cases, I would say that there's a good chance that it is people joyriding and dumping the evidence and burning it. I say that because unless these people have actually organized people to come and do it for them, there are people being picked up on CCTV. There are other individuals that are involved, and not someone walking out their house and stealing their bike and then go dumping it. Of course, that possibility is always there. You can never discount that for sure. But some of these vehicles, I don't think it would be worthwhile even for the insurance, if I could put it that way. Some of them are scooters that they might have paid £100 for or something, and they've just got it for work, and then the next day it's lying burnt out. So the circumstances appear to me as if it's joyriders. Of course, there are some of these higher value bikes that are being stolen, and there is some indication that those are taken out of the county and taken far away. Again, which makes me think it's professionals that are stealing them to sell them on. But I can't discount the insurance side of things.
No, that's fine. Is there something then that we could suggest to our the people of East Grinstead that could help prevent this, or give them some suggestions?
Oh, you know, that's Jason. Honestly, I wish people would buy really good locks and lock these bikes and scooters up, and not just leave them, and have a couple of locks on these vehicles, or put them in a garage. They sometimes leave these beautiful bikes, you know, parked out in the road, sometimes not even locked. I think people just have to be aware, and it's the same thing with the catalytic converters. People have to be aware that motorbikes, motor cars, catalytic converters are targets for these villains, and they've got to proactively look after them themselves. The police can only come in once it's happened, which is really sad, unless we catch them in the act. And that's why we put these extra patrols out now when we can, to try and say, that's a joyrider going past us on a bike, and we catch them red-handed. So the people need to take responsibility for looking after their stuff.
Thank you.
We can't do that. They've got to lock it up good and proper and put them away. And also, you know, marking vehicles doesn't really help all that much either, because you should have a VIN number on these bikes and whatever else has been stolen. So it's more about preventing it getting nicked rather than what you can do after it's nicked.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much.
No worries, Jason. My pleasure.
Chairman, I have no new speakers, and could I please remind the committee to put their hands down once they've asked their question? That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Well, thank you very much, Sergeant Boyd, for coming and joining us. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. We've covered everything. Thank you very much for your input this evening, and we look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you all very much, and we are here to serve you and do so with happiness and pride. You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant Boyd, if you wish to leave, you may. You don't have to stay.
I will do that, and I'll let you fine folks carry on. Have a good evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, let's move on to agenda item 7, which is the report from the Community Liaison Officer. I'm asking the committee to note the work of the Community Liaison Officer this quarter, as outlined in his report. May I have a... Thank you. Agenda item 8, EGAG, East Grinstead Action Group, COVID response. The committee are asked to note the position and also, if they are minded, to fund some thank you gifts to the volunteers, or alternatively, approve that when we can have a reception to say thank you at Eastcourt, that this could be in a little while's time now, or not. Right. There is enough money to do a little something. Please don't let the committee, we don't want the committee to give money to other groups, as if we start up again, we will need it, won't we? As most of the money was donated, we would need permission to pass it on anyway. So we need to remember that donations are not ours to give away. I doubt that it will come back, but that's just background for you. If the committee are minded to thank the volunteers, then I suggest we hold on to the funds and review later in the year. If we are not needing the funds, we can pass the money on to the remaining groups to help them with their costs. But I strongly advise not to do this just now, as if we get a second wave, we have to start up again with no money to support it. So if I have a proposal, that would be it, that we save the money for a while and then donate it to the groups after we've got past the pandemic. I would like to propose that. Can I have a seconder?
Chairman, I have the leader of the Town Council, Councillor Dick Sweatman, requesting to speak, please.
Well, of course, yes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chairman. Yeah, since the action group was set up, we've had a huge amount of volunteers, including councillors, that have actually come to the fore to support our communities and those that are vulnerable in our society in delivering essential food supplies and medicines. It has actually now tailed off a bit, and I really think we should thank those civilian volunteers by way of a small gift, a bottle of wine or some chocolates, just as an appreciation. And I'm very much for that, because without them, we wouldn't have been able to support our community in the way that we have done. However, in light of the recent circumstances, looks like we're going backwards again. And yes, we may have to carry on doing what we've been doing, but that remains to be seen. And however, if we did have a reception, not everyone may be able to turn up to that reception. So I would suggest that we do actually give those that have actually been involved in this thing, is to give them a little gift by way of thank you. And I think that would go down very well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Town Clerk would like to speak.
Town Clerk wants to come in.
I do need to interrupt. I apologise. You made a proposal, it wasn't seconded. We can't discuss this until it's been seconded. We do have a point of order, I'm sorry. So whereas Councillor Sloman has spoken very eloquently, I'm afraid we haven't had it seconded. So you have a proposal which needs to be seconded before you can go any further, please.
May I ask for a second?
Thank you. Carry on.
Chairman,
yes.
Sorry, I haven't got to say that all again, have I?
No, we've taken it as read, it's fine. Anyone else have an opinion?
I'm just looking, Chairman. Yes, Councillor de Bell.
I just wanted to say that your very valid motion, Madam Chairman, was correct, and I'm happy to say to actually second that. And I think that what our town leader, Councillor Sweatman, actually said virtually covered exactly the same ground. So I think you're in total agreement.
Yes,
I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor de Bell. So, can I have a show of hands then? Thank you. Right, shall we move on?
Yes, sorry, Chairman. I did have Councillor Woodgate, but he has lowered his hand, probably because we've taken the vote.
Can I just say, Vice Chair, you have frozen.
Oh
that's-
dear.
You're back in the
Am I
room.
back?
Okay. Yes, fine. Okay. Let's move on, shall we? Agenda item 9. No?
Councillor Woodgate, Chairman.
Oh, right, yes. Councillor Woodgate.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. It was only an idea of maybe instead of a bottle of wine or something, maybe a little medal. You could buy little medals for people to be made up that could have the East Grinstead logo on, and just a little something that's that is a keepsake rather than something that can be kind of drunk and forgotten about.
Yeah, I think
Just
that's a
an
marvellous
idea.
idea. I think that's a marvellous idea, actually. So we'll take that forward. Thank you. Can I move on to agenda item 9 now?
Okay.
Playing pitches strategy. Right. The committee are asked to note the report, and if we want to lobby the district to work with the Sports Council and also to work with the Town Council, as the strategy is implemented, this is an option. I would like to make sure that Steve Odie, who is our rep on the Sports Council, and Councillor Whittaker, who is very involved in the sports world, be involved too. So, anybody got an opinion on this, please?
Councillor Whittaker, Chairman.
Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I know we have in attendance this evening Bob Shelley, who is the chair of the Sports Council. Just to give some very brief contextual background, the Sports Council, or the Sports Development Group, was initiated by this town council back in 2009 by the previous town clerk, and has been taken on by the current town clerk. I've been actively involved throughout that. And Bob Shelley and the Sports Council have done amazing work to promote all of the sports clubs in the town for the previous decade. This is a crucial time because we're lacking in sports pitches, particularly football pitches for junior football in this town and others. We've got exemplar sports status in the town in a number of areas, particularly at the sports club and in the Saint Hill area. The current Mid Sussex District Council playing pitches strategy is not keyed in to through the cabinet or through the scrutiny committee to the current sort of budget proposals or revised budget proposals currently going through. I attended a scrutiny committee on the 26th of August, a couple of weeks ago, from the District Council, and made a plea for sports pitches to be included with the parks investment as a key priority for the District Council. Currently, that's not been taken up, and I'm still lobbying very hard for the District Council to do that. And I'm lobbying hard with Councillor John Belsey, who is a cabinet member for the District Council here tonight, and others. So I would urge the town councillors to continue to strongly lobby for sports pitches to be included within key priorities for the District Council in their revised corporate plan, so that investment in sports pitches can be made, and not just to our parks, which the District Council seem only to do at the moment, and then they don't seem to be putting their money into sports pitches, which I think they should do. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
Councillor Amos wishes to speak.
Yes, Councillor Amos.
Thank you. I would be against this capital expenditure into sports fields, primarily because it says that the source of funding is from Section 106 money, which obviously is a development contribution. And given the fact that that development contribution has to be lobbied, or rather levied, on developers and therefore on people that buy homes, I don't think it's right to make homes more expensive to fund people kicking a football about when people could have cheaper homes. And it's very important to consider cheaper homes in East Grinstead, because as you look at the average house price to average wage in East Grinstead, it's 16 to 1. It's unacceptable. So to further heap additional pressures on people trying to buy homes is not acceptable, especially not to fund people kicking a football about. And quite frankly, I don't see what capital investment really needs to be made in a sports field, given the fact you need a football and 2 jumpers. Well, 4 jumpers if you want 2 goals. There's no need for metal things up as goalposts that simply rust.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Any other input?
I don't think I have any other speakers, Chair.
Well, do we have Councillor Whitaker? Would you like to make a proposal that I can second?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the invitation. I would propose. I mean, our town clerk is actively involved with Mr. Shelley and the Sports Council through this group, and has been for the last 9 years. We've got a Sports Council meeting, which Mr. Shelley will chair on the 23rd of September, and through that forum, I would like a strong letter of lobbying from the town council, if we can, please, through so the wording agreed with Mr. Shelley and the chair and the town clerk to lobby Mid Sussex District Council in the strongest possible terms to include playing pitches within their key objectives, revised corporate plans, to be added to their parks investment through Section 106 funding. I understand the comments from Councillor Amos, but in reply to him, we have a huge demand for junior football in this town, absolutely massive, and this investment is absolutely key. And I think it's crucial that this town council continue to support the Sports Council as they set it up. You know, and it's a major strength of this town in Mid Sussex and the south of England. Thank you.
Thank you. So, town clerk. I can't hear you now. You've gone.
I'm going to have to go back to Councillor Whitaker and ask him to formalise me a proposal. There was a lot there, and I didn't get it all.
Thank you. To formalise a letter between the town clerk, the chair of this committee, and Mr. Shelley, the chair of the Sports Council, to lobby Mid Sussex in the next few weeks, to be included within the District Council's corporate priorities for investment in playing pitches.
Right, okay.
Before we go to that, Chairman, would you mind if I bring Councillor Scott in? He wishes to speak.
We need to second it first, Liz.
Sorry.
Second, right, okay.
Thank you.
Now, yes, who was it, Councillor? Scott. Councillor Scott.
I would like to simply endorse everything that Councillor Whitaker has just said. There are too many distractions for children to keep them indoors, i.e. computer games, etc., etc. And the need to upgrade pitches to get them out in the open and playing a sport, I think, is imperative. And I would 100% support everything that Councillor Whitaker has just said.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. So can I have a show of hands then on that proposal and second?
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10, which is our youth initiatives. This is a proposal that has been brought to the council.
Lead the meeting, please.
The proposal is for a new youth shelter to be put on King George's Field. This was requested following the street pastors talking to youngsters on their Friday afternoon walks before COVID. The proposal is to place a shelter on King George's Field. The field is owned by Mid Sussex District Council. Therefore, the town council has no say on whether the shelter gets put up. Mid Sussex District Council are being asked in the first instance. However, as there will be ongoing maintenance costs, the street pastors have asked the Town Council if Mid Sussex District Council decline but would allow the shelter to be placed so long as somebody else looks after it, would we? Technically, we cannot insure it unless it belongs to us. But if it belongs to us and is placed with permission on the MSDC land, then yes, we can insure it and maintain it. Youth shelters have been removed before due to misuse and damage. There would be no guarantee of replacement at the end of its life, but we could maintain it in the interim. Street pastors are not looking for us to pay for it. They are looking to use money from the town mayor's fundraising and raise money from other places to fund the shelter. So the question is, if Mid Sussex District Council will not adopt the shelter, would East Grinstead Town Council? If the committee are minded, then this will be a proposal to Amenities and Tourism Committee, asking them to make a budget provision and take responsibility for it. Right. Any hands up, Vice Chair?
Chairman, I still have a couple of hands up from the last item, the agenda. So could I please ask the committee to lower their hands and then raise them again so I can be absolutely sure who wishes to speak on this item, please? Thank you.
Super.
Right. Chairman, I have Councillor Amos.
Councillor Amos.
Would it be possible to pass to John Devell first or other councillors so I can respond to what they say?
Well, if you so wish. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Councillor de Bell, Chairman.
Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I've only heard about this today, to be perfectly honest, and it was something that came up on Facebook. I think it was our own Councillor Amos that actually raised the issue. I think, from what I've seen, I have a great deal of trepidation about this in terms of it being used for the wrong purposes. And if they've had to be removed in the past for that, that just increases my anxiety towards the whole thing. I'd like to know a lot more about what it is, what it looks like, and what it would be used for before I could actually throw my support behind it. And I understand Councillor Amos's concerns as to it being used for the wrong purposes, etc. Personally, I have concerns, and I would need a lot more persuasion before I'd feel that it was the right thing to do. Because as we know at the moment, any opportunity that people get, young people particularly, for converting something to their own use in terms of unlawful things and not very nice things, never mind about who it was intended for originally, is what they tend to do. So I'd need a lot more convincing on this one. Thank you.
Chairman, I have Councillor Odie.
Councillor Odie.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Vice Chair. I would like to see the costs before I make a proper decision, but I would just like to say that I think that anything that we can do, particularly since lockdown, for the younger generation of our younger community in our town is got to be a good thing. And I don't think pigeonholing all of our children in town under the umbrella that they're going to be dealing drugs is quite right. And I'd like to see that us as a committee really support our younger community members wholeheartedly.
Right.
Chairman, I have Councillor Sweatman, the leader of the Town Council. Thank you.
Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for allowing me to speak again on your committee. Well, for a start, I'm very much for a shelter that will help our youth out on King George's Field. The thing is that that field is district owned. I think it's the responsibility of District Council to supply that shelter. What I'm really concerned about is that the Town Council will end up a noose around its neck if we end up maintaining it and insuring it. I don't think that's the remit of this Town Council, and I think we should lobby District Council to put that shelter up and maintain it. As regards if it does get vandalised, well, there's a high probability, unfortunately, these days. There'll be no guarantee that if it was the Town Council's responsibility, that we could replace it. The Town Council in this COVID situation, we all have to take cutbacks. And I don't think there's something this Town Council could be involved in any maintenance whatsoever. So thank you for that, Chair.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have Councillor Scott.
Councillor Scott.
I've listened to everybody's thoughts on this, and yes, I can understand Councillor DeMille and what he said, and I can understand Councillor Odey. The one thing I don't know is, does anybody know how big this shelter is going to be? And what is the location within the field, the King George's Field? Where are they planning on putting it?
Did you not all get the pack? Because we've all had the East Grinstead Youth Centre, the shelter pack. I mean, it's huge. I've got it here. Look, it says everything. Did we not all get it?
Yes. Chairman, would you like me to just give a very brief, for those who haven't read it, I just give a very brief explanation, because I think there's a little bit of confusion that's crept out, and I apologise. I know there's other councillors waiting to speak, but I think we're getting a little bit off the thing here. The street pastors want to have a youth shelter, not a youth centre, a youth shelter, and they got this idea from having. We asked them to do after school patrols at 3-4 o'clock on half term and term breaks, because we were seeing a little bit of ASB happening, certainly between the two senior schools. So we asked them to do that, and one of the things they did was they started talking to the youngsters, and the youth shelter that we used to have on East Court was taken away due to vandalism, and the youth shelter which was on King George's Field was also taken away. It was quite broken down. It was very elderly, but it again had been vandalised, so it was removed by the district. So we don't have anything like that for the moment, and the kids had said that that's something that they would like. Fully understand the comments that are being made. I'm not giving an opinion either which way, but what then happened was that the street pastors, who are one of the town mayor's charities this year, asked the town mayor if he would be happy if they used the money that he raised towards building of a youth shelter, and the town mayor has agreed that that would be fine. So that's where the money's going to come from, but we don't think that's enough to pay for it. We think it's somewhere in the region of around about £10,000 to do this. It's a very whippy-dippy thing with entries and exits. The police have looked at it. They quite like the look of what's being proposed. So if you think like an umbrella at the top, and then it's got various different entries and exit ways, and there's panels on the top. So the suggestion was that the two senior schools could get involved with designing some art or work or something to go on the panels, so that the youngsters would then feel an ownership towards it. It's got Bluetooth, it's got speakers, it's got things like that. But you can also curfew it so that it doesn't play after a certain time of night. So the design itself is not what we would necessarily have thought of in the past as a youth shelter. It's something very different, and this is shown in the papers that you have been sent, so you should have this. What they're asking of us is that I believe that sorry, there was no initial approach to Mid Sussex District Council. They came to us and said, would we, if they bought it, would we look after it? And I explained right from the word go that if you were looking to place it on King George's Field, no, because that does not belong to the Town Council. That belongs to Mid Sussex District Council. Knowing the position of finances, I think the concern was the District Council would not agree to adopt it once it had been bought and put in place. So therefore they might allow it to go onto their field, but they wouldn't adopt it themselves. They would want a third party to own it. Street pastors don't feel that they can take on that responsibility. So that's where they've come back to us. And again, this is the decision before the committee. If Mid Sussex say they're willing for it to be placed on the field, but they're not willing to insure it and take the maintenance of it, is this council willing to do that? So it's the insurance and the ongoing maintenance. It's not buying it, but there is still certainly a financial obligation, because if it does get vandalised, it will have to be fixed. That will be an insurance claim, and obviously that affects our insurance premiums, and likewise repairing it, just general maintenance as well. The one thing I did make very clear to the street pastors was that if my suggestion to this council would be, if we agreed that we wanted to do this and we would take it on, that would not include a commitment to replace it at the end of its life, which would then obviously be another £10,000 plus investment. So I was very clear about that. So the only thing that's coming before this committee, and as I said, I'm not proposing it, this is the decision in front of you, is if the District Council, which is without doubt the first stage, and that's where I've already made requests and started asking questions. I've spoken with Councillor Belsey about it. If the district say yes, they'll take it on, it's got nothing to do with us. If the district don't, would the Town Council, with the permission of the district, be willing to look after the shelter? So that is the decision that's in front of you. And I felt we were getting a bit off topic here, so I apologise, Chairman, if I have just basically talked around to suck eggs, but that is what the report says, and that is why you've actually had quite a bit of detail in those papers.
Thank you, Town Clerk.
Chairman, I have Councillor Mrs. Barron.
Councillor Mrs. Barron.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think pretty much it's been said. I'm quite keen for something for the youth. However, I think having looked at the designs, there's a couple of them. One I think is better than the other. The one that has one entry point, I think, could propose other issues with the young, and the one that has lots of different entry points, they're saying it does let the rain and things in, which negates sort of the shelter area of it. So I think needs a little bit more thinking through and supporting it. It really does depend on the cost. You know, I don't think I could propose that we would support it until we knew the financial implications of looking after it. But I certainly think the youth and the young do need something.
Thank you, Councillor Barron. Anyone else?
Chairman, I have Councillor Amos.
Ah, Councillor Amos. Can I just say one thing, Councillor Amos? As you've already made your views patently clear on Facebook, unless you're going to say something new, I think we should move on. What do you wish to say?
Well, I've prepared some new points and some new evidence, so you'll be pleased to hear that I've got lots of speaking to do. I think the council has said a number of very wise things, particularly in regards to ongoing repairs and maintenance. I looked at the King Street toilets, for example, and went through the reports over the past 9 months and saw how many breakages there were there, just to see if this similar kind of behaviour would occur to the youth shelter. And the following occurred to the King Street public toilets. The parents' actuator broke, the ladies' door mechanism broke, then the gents' actuator broke, then the disabled actuator broke, then the mother and baby room floor tiles were broken.
Point of order, Chairman. Point of order, Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry to interrupt. We are not discussing the King Street public toilets tonight.
No.
We're discussing the shelter on King George's Field. Excuse me.
That's correct.
I'm out of order. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman, for that interjection. I was about to remind Councillor Amos of that fact, actually. So, Councillor Amos, if you'd like to bring yourself back to the matter in hand, we will continue to listen.
Well, it was a demonstrative point of the fact that public services, when they're owned by the public, typically tend to get broken to a greater extent than private services. But nonetheless, I'll move on to my next point. The council must be prudent. If we look at the amount of reserves that this council has at the moment, it's only just over 50% of net expenditure, which is the council's policy to have it between 50 and 60%, I believe. And given the fact that I think it's reasonable to assume that given rents have been halved at East Court, that there will be a significant reduction in town council revenue, given the fact that non-precept income makes up 24% of the town council's income, that we will inevitably be spending more at the end of the day. And as a result of that, we will be eating into reserves. And if we go with St. Margaret's Loop, as this council has proposed, by my estimates, we'll have 22.6% of net expenditure in reserves. And as the leader of the council has said, this ongoing repair cost that we would have to adopt, which is totally unspecified, which is rather unfortunate, would only eat into our reserves further if we were to adopt it next year, when we really need to be being far more prudent in the current economic circumstances. As I said in my piece on Facebook, I'm not against any youth centre per se, and that's not what the motion is about this evening. I think what has been said this evening is absolutely right. It could possibly be misused. And secondly, we need to be prudent, and therefore we can't go ahead, or we shouldn't go ahead rather, with this expenditure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. So, we have had a proposal, well, the question, if Mid Sussex will not adopt the shelter, would East Grinstead Town Council? This will be a proposal that goes to A&T, which we would ask them to make a budget provision and therefore take responsibility for it.
Chairman, you're going to need to make a proposal, but before you do, Councillor Mrs. Belsey's got a hand up.
Right, Councillor Mrs. Belsey.
Thank you. Whereas I'm all for the centre for the youth, I think that's great. I just think it's really inappropriate at this time. Not only the centre, as we all know from young people, would have to be cleaned every day, but the sanitising it in the days of COVID, I just think that it is the wrong time to be making such a judgment. I think it should be postponed until circumstances within COVID change. I just think it's not the right time to be instigating such a project.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Belsey. There we have it. I'm at a loss as to what my proposal should be. Shall I go with the proposal?
Again, I'm not sure whether or not Councillor Odie is waiting to be called, or whether he's just left his hand up.
Councillor Odie.
Sorry, Chair, I'll remove my hand. I didn't realise.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, I've read the proposal twice now. I'll propose it. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, Chairman, I'm not sure what you're proposing.
Well, I was proposing that we take it forward, if we're minded, to A&T.
So,
to adopt the shelter if
your proposal is to adopt the shelter if Mid Sussex District Council do not.
Yes, as that's what I've got. Yes.
Clear?
Yes. Do I have a second? No.
Chairman, I'm just wondering whether we might propose that this is asked of Mid Sussex District Council, and if it is refused, then perhaps this committee take a second look.
Yes. Well, wise moves, Vice Chair. Thank you. So let's do that. Let's propose that we ask Mid Sussex to adopt this shelter. Do I have a second?
I will second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Can we have a show of hands, please?
And those against? I think you just had it, Chair, Vice Chair. I think your proposal has just gone through 5-3.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Well, thank you, committee. That's all on the agenda for this evening. I'd like to remind you that the next meeting for this committee is scheduled for the 3rd of December, a Thursday, And I would like to close this meeting at 20:24.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank
Very
you,
well
Chair.
done, Madam Chair. Very well done.
Thank you, Chair.